Okay, class. This week is chapter 9, and we're going to talk about how to motivate employees. I want you to look at the chapter PowerPoint and the chapter outlines and the embedded videos. Review the embedded videos within this chapter. So here are some learning outcomes that you have. When you read through each outcome and the outlines that I sent you, it answers in detail, kind of summarizing each of these learning outcomes. And one of the things that I'd like you to know about is how to motivate employees. And there's a chart in your book regarding extrinsic versus intrinsic value. So, intrinsic motivators versus extrinsic motivators. Intrinsic value versus extrinsic value. So extrinsic is money, right? As a manager, as an employee that you work for a company, money is important. You need money to survive, to pay your expenses, and to, live life. And when running a business, it takes money to run a business. Now, here's the thing. Do you think money is everything? That is a question that one must answer. Getting paid a lot of money to work, but if you don't have job satisfaction, if you're not motivated to come into work, that might not be a good motivator, right? Intrinsic value or intrinsic motivators, something like I mentioned about job satisfaction, or you're feeling valued within the company you work for. So as a business owner, you got to offer both extrinsic and intrinsic motivators and value to your potential employee to basically coordinate and help you operate your small business. So you may be offering money to the employee that you hire, but you got to also have that motivators of making them feel valued in that workplace, the corporate culture, the culture of work where people are feeling welcomed and valued in their work. If people don't feel valued or appreciated, then sometimes that motivation may go down, or they may find another job altogether. That's just something you may want to consider when starting your own business. And I know when starting your own business, you may be the business of one, you may not have an employee, but you have to figure out how you run your business to make enough profit and to ask for help. And there's a lot of trust when you're hiring someone to help you run your business, right? So take a look at this chart. These are some basic concepts in section 1. And one of the things about Frederick Taylor talks about this concept in the book called Scientific Management. And scientific management was the first theory that offered compensation as a motivator for people to work. That may be true, right? That may be true, but you may want to think, does it apply today, right? So just paying off people to work for you with enough earnings so they could cover their cost of living or to be happy with money, do you think that's all it is in terms of running a business? That's something you may want to think about when considering to run your business. Here's some concept 2 checks, right? Some questions. And there's a video about the Hawthorne effect, and I think that's something you may want to look at again, right? So let's take a look at this video here, right?
The Hawthorne effect states that people will act differently when aware they're being observed. Naturally, then, monitoring will affect employees' behavior. But does it help or harm productivity? Researchers have been asking this question for over 100 years. Some have argued that monitoring improves productivity. It can also encourage good behaviors and discourage bad ones. However, monitoring can also have a negative effect. Employees can fear being punished, experience narrow focus, or feel their autonomy is threatened. With these conflicting views, how can we effectively use monitoring in the workplace? When is it useful and when is it not? To answer this, we did a study in a clothing manufacturing plant in India. This factory produces trousers and jackets for men's suits. In 2012, they installed a system that monitored worker activity for selected manufacturing lines. Every time an employee started to work on a task, they would scan an RFID code. This allowed their progress to be tracked down the production line. We grouped the tasks the workers performed as either simple or complex. This we determined from the average time that workers take to complete a task. We also measured worker efficiency by comparing a worker's individual task completion times against the average for that task. Our results showed that people working on simple tasks had improved results when monitored. They made a game out of their tasks to ward off boredom, a process known as gamification. But those working on complex tasks showed decreased productivity. These workers felt that monitoring controlled them and interfered with their work. How much did productivity change? For simple tasks, it rose by 10%. But for complex tasks, it fell by 8.5%. In both cases, a significant result. Therefore, monitoring in the workplace is best applied to simple and gamified tasks, but best avoided for more complex tasks. Read the full paper to learn more.
Okay. So after reviewing this video, you may want to review this again, and you may want to think, what are your thoughts on this video? How do you think monitoring does affect video? Might affect your productivity. I know that most of the time when I'm trying to do a lecture, I put my camera off by summarizing this chapter for you and showing some media. It's very hard for me to perform if I have a video camera on me. So can you imagine, as a worker, if you got a video camera monitoring you, your every movement, that would certainly change the way people behave, right? And you might not bring out the best talent in your performance per se. And I hope that makes sense and just something to consider when starting your business. These are some questions to consider from that video. This chart is very important. It's a psychological tool, Maslow hierarchy of needs. And what this Maslow gentleman had talked about was everyone has levels. And based on the Maslow hierarchy of needs, the first level is physiological needs. So that physiological needs can be water, food, right? Those are some physiological needs. People could survive without food as long as they have water, but water is essential for life. Then once those needs are met, biological needs, physiological needs, such as food and water, then the second level in that hierarchy would be safety needs, right? Everyone needs to feel safe. When you have housing insecurities and food insecurities, how can one really possibly concentrate on the task at hand? How can one possibly concentrate on work or school for that matter? So once Maslow's theory is saying that once the physiological needs are met, food and water, safety concerns or safety needs such as housing or stable housing, then people needs that third level of social needs. Everybody needs a sense of belonging. Everybody needs to socialize. Even during the COVID times for the past 2 years, we all needed something social needs. So, you know, maybe we're not seeing each other face to face, but we always try to do Zoom to see each other, somewhat connect, right? And in the workplace, if you don't have social bonds in the workplace, it makes work a little less fun, right? I mean, work sometimes can never be fun, but if you enjoy what you do and you have met your physiological and safety needs and you have social peers that you can connect and bond with, your coworkers, then it makes it work a little more fun, sustainable. And also it comes to the fourth level of esteem needs, right? Everyone loves praise at work or acknowledgement or that sense of appreciation. So when you get a promotion or reward recognition for your hard work. That is something that gives us the esteem needs that we crave. We all love to be praised, and we all want that sense of belonging and appreciation. The fifth level, based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, is that self-actualization. And that self-actualization is where you've made it. You've gone through what you need to go through and you've made it, right? I would argue that self-actualization needs, I would argue that it comes on every level. It's not that self-actualization does not just meet once and then that's it. I think from my perspective, self-actualization, where you made it, comes in different stages of your life and development. For example, when you graduated preschool or kindergarten, that is a self-actualization in the early stages of your life, in that infancy stage. Your primary school education, elementary school, you met that self-actualization once you graduated from elementary school in 6th grade. You met your physiological needs through each of these life stages of development in your life, from when you were a toddler, infant to toddler to child to preteens to teenagers, right? Every level that you've moved up in your life development stages, you have met those physiological and safety and social needs. Those esteem needs could be recognitions and rewards, and that self-actualization means that you've done it. You completed the task, you graduated, you got on top. So I think from my perspective, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that self-actualization top is realized for each of your life stage development of your life. And when you're at work, part-time jobs, the self-actualization or the esteem needs that are met is you either got a promotion, you're recognized as employee of the month, you get rewarded and recognition from your fellow co-workers that you've done something. And that's something that everyone needs, that recognition, whether we admit it or not. And that's what makes work, people feel appreciated at work and people stay loyal to work. So you may want to consider that when you are opening up your own small business, that you consider the Maslow hierarchy of needs, right? All your employees need to have that safety net in terms of housing security and basic needs. And they also need to meet that physiological needs of food and water. Without that, people can't concentrate as well as they should, right? And the social needs aspect comes with the interactions of coworkers, and you as a manager owner, the interaction that you have with your fellow workers or your fellow colleagues, right? And always give recognition where recognition is due, that appreciation, okay? These are some of the concept checks of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'll let you take a look at this and read about it in the textbook. The textbook that we have on OpenStax, and also we have the chapter outlines in PowerPoint. Now, here's a video about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Let's take a look at this.
This video will help you to improve employee motivation using Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory. Psychologist Abraham Maslow developed the hierarchy of needs theory. This theory explains that everyone is motivated to satisfy 5 basic needs. These needs are arranged in a hierarchy. We satisfy the lowest needs first. As each need is met, we satisfy the next level need until we have met all 5 needs. So what are these 5 needs? The 5 needs are physiological needs, security needs, belongingness needs, esteem needs, and self-actualization needs. So how does this hierarchy exist in the workplace? In Maslow's hierarchy, our most basic need is physiological. We have to survive. We are concerned about our salary and stable employment. Once this need is met, we are concerned about our security. We want a stable work environment. We want good benefits, a safe work environment. Worker safety is important. Once our security needs are met, we turn our attention to belongingness needs or social concerns. We want to work with good peers, a good boss. The team becomes our concern, our issue. Once our belongingness needs are met, we turn our attention to esteem needs. We want to be respected and recognized for the value we bring to the workplace. Perks, job titles, other issues, and other status concerns become important to us here. Finally, once our esteem needs are met, our final need is at the self-actualization level. We are concerned about achievement. We value autonomy, being a subject matter expert, doing challenging work, having opportunity to grow. As these needs are met, we are satisfied and motivated in the workplace. Our first concern as a worker is our survival or our physiological needs. Our second concern is our security in the workplace. We want a stable work environment. Our third need is belongingness. These are our social needs. It's about the people with whom we spend most of our lives. Our fourth workplace need is esteem. It's about social acceptance. Our final workplace need is self-actualization. It's about being all that we can be. So how can you apply Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory to the workplace? Here's what you can do. Motivation begins with knowing your people. So take time to learn more about each of your employees. If you listen, observe, and ask them, they'll tell you what is important to them. Once you have this information, use it to identify your employees' most pressing needs. Which of the 5 levels in Maslow's hierarchy are they operating at? Once you have that information, match your rewards, leadership, and communication style to each employee's most pressing need. Remember, give your employees what is important to them, not what is important to you.
Okay. Here's another video sample.
First of all, you have to get the words grocery store out of your mind, because this is a food shopping experience. It's everything from fresh produce to fresh seafood to meat, in prepared items such as sushi. We have an Asian bar. We have sit-down restaurants in some of our stores.
I'm making swordfish.
We have wokuri, burritos, sushi, pizza, subs, coffee, everything.
We have many opportunities to make a difference with our customers because we have knowledgeable people that are passionate and are very competent in food preparation. That's what we look at when we look at culinary folks joining our company. It's the attitude that really makes a difference. People that can be part of a team. We have very high standards, and our standards are as good as any restaurant or hotel. We expect no less, and we have many people to help you be successful. The Culinary Management Trainee Program is a focused 2-year program. It's for high potential culinary prepared food employees to dig deep in all the areas of prepared foods and meats, seafood, produce, all the perishable areas, and become future leaders for our company.
I started with the company as a cook 3. I quickly became a pizza team leader, and then after about a year doing that, I moved to cook 1. And what I saw those guys doing in the CMT program seemed a lot more of an opportunity for me to learn and grow towards my goal of being a sous chef.
My rotations, and I did all of the kitchen rotations, wokry, sushi, and then I headed out into seafood and meat department, cheese shop, the deli, and I'm able to take those experiences from those other departments and bring it into the kitchen.
My day is non-stop usually from beginning to end. I usually start by greeting all the employees, making sure everything's going well with them. And then I run through the day and see what needs to be done as far as production-wise. Wherever I need to go, I hop in. That includes the restaurant side and also the subs, pizza, and coffee to help out. The people side is great. The interaction with employees, I like the development part of it, where you get to work with people maybe that haven't worked with food or customers that haven't worked with food. I love coming in and hearing the stories of maybe something they've done at home or something they've done at work.
Our restaurant managers are charged with bringing hospitality to life, making people feel welcome, engaged. When you come to Wegmans and you come to the Market Cafe and there's something fun going on, our restaurant manager is the driver of that. They're a developer of people. They love to teach people and show them new things and help them learn. Maybe it's wine knowledge, beer knowledge, spirit knowledge. So that restaurant manager really partners with the chef to have the best food and the most awesome hospitality that you can get anywhere in the world.
A guest can come and sit in the pub and talk to the cooks or talk to the servers and learn how to take a scallop and make it the way we do, and we can tell them anywhere in the store to go get the product. So you don't have to learn it in a restaurant and then go to another store. You're already in the building.
At Next Door Bar and Grill, the concept is a lot of farm to fork. We feature all sustainable seafood. All of the proteins that we serve are all natural, no antibiotics, no hormones used. And then the chefs that run the restaurants, really their personality comes through in the menu. I know that we hit the nail on the head when a guest goes home. As they're falling asleep, they're still talking about the dining experience they had, the food that they ate, the little touches that the service staff was able to provide. And for culinarians to come work in this environment, you get kind of the best of both worlds. You get the opportunity to work for Wegmans, but then you also get the opportunity to work in a high energy environment of a la carte service restaurant.
Think differently about your culinary career. You can work within decent, regular hours and really get some of the same development that you would get being a line cook for 10 years.
I came from that industry and I totally appreciate, that hotel life. But on the other hand, I know at Wegmans, I have such great balance, my days off.
At Wegmans, you're able to have a life as well as develop your career.
So if you're looking for a place that honestly cares about you and respects you and lets you make decisions that affect your work environment through, empowerment, and yet really holds high standards, culinary expertise to the utmost of importance.
I just couldn't think of a better place.
Okay. So after looking at this video, this question right here, which aspects of hierarchy needs appear to you that Wigman's approach helps satisfy, right? Look at these examples and videos and come up with your own, I guess, hierarchy of needs that you would address within your own business that you create. Okay? All right, let's move on. Here are some of the questions to consider. Here are some different types of management approaches. This is a good table when it comes to comparison between traditional and Japanese management style. And especially when you read about the human resource model when it comes to theories X and theory Y, right? Think about it. Many theory X, what they say about theory X is that people are lazy. People lack ambition and dislike responsibility. People are self-centered. People resist change, and people are gullible and not bright. That is the theory X management style approach. And that is a human resource approach where they don't trust the employees they hire, right? As in with theory Y, they have positive things to say about people that are under them, such as they're energetic, ambitious, seek responsibility. They're able to be selfless, the workers that work under you. And they want to contribute to the business growth and change. And people are intelligent, right? And then theory Z, a combination of US and Japanese management style, right? It's something that, as we progress through management history in our society, we changed how the management and leadership style approaches to employee relationships. Take a look at this chart. It is also in your textbook. And tell me your thoughts, right? Tell me your thoughts. Here's a continued chart. I did talk about the theory X, theory Y, previously. And remember, the theory X is more of a style of, I don't trust you that I hired you, and I can't trust you to be a good worker. That type of attitude and style will not work in today's business environment. People want to feel valued, and people want to be trusted in what they got to do. Otherwise, why would you hire them, right? Here is a video that would be helpful, and I'm going to play it.
I'm Sir Howard Stringer. I'm on the board of the BBC, Time Inc., the new board, and Talk, and I'm chairman of the American Film Institute. Success in any endeavor, whether it's entrepreneurial activity or media activity, theatrical activity, is the same. It comes out of the creative process, and risk is involved, and either it succeeds or it doesn't succeed. If it succeeds, you're delirious and amazed, and you think it'll never happen again, and it probably won't. But then you go back into the well and try again. I had a giant entrepreneurial moment which made me very proud. I started a company that was creating television over copper wire and ultimately fiber. It was the first broadband television in America, heavily funded by the telephone companies, and they lost interest. It was just too soon, it took too long, and they pulled the plug and left me and my little company high and dry. 10 years later, they started again, and there's now television programming through Verizon, the phone company in America, which is very successful, but it didn't do me any good. The lesson of that kind of experience is it isn't always measured in direct success, monetary and so forth. It's measured in the experience. It's about learning leadership and management of a company like that, and that in itself is quite thrilling. And there are three things I always think about that a manager should be concentrating on in varying orders: communication, motivation, and inspiration. If you can provide all three and remember to try to, then I think you have a better chance of succeeding. Communication all the time, you can never communicate too much. Motivation, because you care about people and you want to encourage them. And inspiration, you don't have all that much of. Use it whenever you can.
All right. Here are some questions to consider from that video. Now, I think in today's environment, we rely more on trust and relationships in an employee-employer relationship. And that's something to consider about trust, human relationships, when you are encountering each other on a level of the title of either employee or employer, and to develop that relationship and be cohesive to do the work to make that company successful. And I think one of the things that you as a new business owner have to keep in mind, that when you're hiring somebody, you got to have a little trust in them, that after the training that they will be able to do the job. Otherwise, why hire anybody to help you with running your company? Just some thoughts. And here's another video about motivation. This is from a film clip, and it talks about, you know, motivation in sales, right? So I'm going to play this.
Put that coffee down. Coffee's for closers only. You think I'm fucking with you? I am not fucking with you. I'm here from downtown. I'm here from Mitch and Murray. And I'm here on a mission of mercy. Your name's Levine? Yeah. You call yourself a salesman, you son of a bitch? I don't gotta listen to this shit. You certainly don't, pal. Because the good news is you're fired. The bad news is you've got just 1 week to regain your job, starting with tonight. Starting with tonight's sit. Oh, have I got your attention now? Good. Because we're adding a little something to this month's sales contest. As you all know, first prize is a Cadillac Eldorado. Anybody want to see second prize? Second prize is a set of steak knives. Third prize is you're fired. You get the picture? You laughing now? You got leads. Mitch and Murray paid good money. Get their names to sell them. You can't close the leads you're given. You can't close shit. You are shit. Hit the bricks, pal, and beat it, because you are going out.
The leads are weak.
The leads are weak. The fucking leads are weak. You're weak. I've been in this business 15 years.
What's your name?
Fuck you. That's my name. You know why, mister? Because you drove a Hyundai to get here tonight. I drove an $80,000 BMW. That's my name. A, B, C. A, always be B, C, closing. Always be closing. Always be closing. AIDA, attention, interest, decision, action. Attention. Do I have your attention? Interest. Are you interested? I know you are, because it's fuck or walk. You close or you hit the bricks. Decision. Have you made your decision for Christ? An action. AIDA. Get out there. You got the prospects coming in. You think they came in to get out of the rain? A guy don't walk on the lot lest he wants to buy. They're sitting out there waiting to give you their money. Are you going to take it? Are you man enough to take it? What's the problem, pal? You, Moss.
You're such a hero. You're so rich. How come you're coming down here and waste your time with such a bunch of bums?
You see this watch? You see this watch?
Yeah.
That watch costs more than your car. I made $970,000 last year. How much you make? You see, pal, that's who I am. And
real
you're
estate?
nothing. It takes brass balls to sell real estate. Go and do likewise, gents. The money's out there. You pick it up, it's yours. You don't, I got no sympathy for you. You want to go out on those sits tonight and close, it's yours. Not, you're going to be shining my shoes. And you know what you'll be saying? Bunch of losers sitting around in the bar. Oh, yeah, I used to be a salesman. It's a tough racket. These are the new leads. These are the Glengarry leads. And to you, they're gold. And you don't get them. Why? Because to give them to you is just throwing them away. They're for closers.
Okay, so watching this scene from that film, what are you think about your thoughts? Is this a good motivator to motivate employees to be efficient in their sales techniques, right? That's something to consider. I mean, would that type of training in sales work today in 2022? Right, something to think about. Something to think about. Okay. Now, Hertzberger's motivating and hygiene factors, right? Some of the things that they laid out was the motivating factors based on achievement, recognition, and work itself. And the hygiene factors is based on company policy, supervision, and working conditions. And what are the advancement and salary benefits and growth and job security, right? These type of things are very important to any employee that you hire. Do they get recognition? Is the work itself meaningful to the worker that's doing the work? What are the working conditions like at your company? Right? These are all things that one must consider if you plan to open up a business, whether it's a small business or if you're going into a corporate job. These are some of the things that many corporate leaders have to think about. And as an entrepreneur, as a small business owner, you yourself, maybe on a smaller scale, would have to think about these things for your employee and work conditions. These are some self-check concepts for section 5. I'll let you read it on your own and review. And this is a good exhibit in terms of 9.6. How can expectations can lead to motivation, right? What is your expectancy from the effort, performance, and individual needs? What are the outcomes? Okay. Right. So the expectancy theory is a theory of motivation, holding that people are motivated to work towards rewards, and they want and they believe they have a reasonable chance of obtaining it. Right. Everybody, when they work, they have motivation to do something, right? What that something is, you will learn throughout your interactions with your employees, right? When we talk about expectation theory, we're talking about how, people are motivated to work towards a certain goal, towards a reward. I think we've all been motivated growing up when we were children going to school, motivated by some sort of reward at the end. Getting a on that test, and that reward can be $5 for your piggy bank or something, right? In the workplace, the motivation could be that promotion, that reward of a promotion, that level up, so to speak. Okay. Here are some concept checks for section 6, and one of the learning objectives that you want to read about in the textbook. This one, when it comes to Hofstede's cultural dimensions, remember when we talked about globalization and global markets, we need to understand cultural intelligence when we are in the workforce or when we are in the workforce or when we're on the managerial position or when we are working as a small business owner. That cultural intelligence is very important. When I say cultural intelligence, I mean understanding the culture and global ramifications of that culture in terms of doing business, right? The historical background of the people or the consumers you plan to sell your product or service to. Let's take a look at this video.
Take a look at this guy. His name is Geert Hofstede. Geert Hofstede. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce his name because it's not an English name. He is a psychologist from the Netherlands. He's a very smart guy and he knows a lot about international things. One of his ideas was to explain the differences between national cultures around the world, right? So every country sort of has a culture. That's called a national culture. So why are some national cultures a little bit different? I mean, why do some countries have some values and other countries have different values? You know, why do sometimes conflicts arise when one culture tries to work with another culture? Sometimes there are conflicts, right? For example, if a Japanese businessman tries to do a business deal with an American businessman, sometimes it just might not work. There might be some misunderstandings. Both people might get offended. There's just a different culture. There's a different set of expectations. Okay, so this is very interesting stuff. Now, he came up with an idea, or he came up with something called the 6 dimensions of national culture. The 6 dimensions of national culture. Okay, here they are right here. Don't worry if you don't understand what these words mean, because I'm going to explain each of them in a few minutes. Okay, now the first thing is a dimension. Do you know what a dimension is? Okay, a dimension is like a part of something, or an aspect of something, or a way to think about something. For example, here's a cube. Okay, a cube is 3-dimensional. That means it has 3 different dimensions. Okay, whereas a square only has 2 dimensions, right? Width and height. A cube has width, height, and depth. Depth. Okay, so that's what the word dimension means. So the first of the 6 cultural dimensions is called power distance. Now this means how much a society values hierarchy. Okay, so hierarchy in the society, okay, between relationships. How much distance is there between relationships? Okay, for example, in China, your boss is up here and you are down there. You are nothing and your boss is everything. Okay, whereas in Canada, there's much less power distance. Okay, look, the distance is not as much. Your boss is here, you are here. Okay, very interesting. Why does this happen? Well, it happens because societies have certain preferences for things, like how much power distance there is in certain relationships, like employee-employer relationships. Okay, in China it's a lot higher, in Canada it's not as much. Okay, now Hofstede's models are sort of rated. Each dimension is rated on a scale of 0 to 100. 0 being low and 100 being high. Okay, so China scores 80 in this category, so they really like power distance, whereas Canada, not so much. It's not really our value. Everyone is more equal. Okay, now the next one is individualism versus collectivism. Okay, individual means one person. Collective means like more than one person. Okay, so with individualism, you are responsible for yourself only. Okay, if we have a very extreme mindset toward individualism, that would mean I'm only responsible for myself. I'm not responsible for anyone else. Whereas collectivism means you are responsible for society, and society is responsible for you. Okay, it's a nice, big, happy family, right? So society is more important. Society is more important than the individual. Whereas with individualism, you are the most important. Forget about society. I'm the most important person. Okay, so that's why countries like Asian countries that tend to be very collective, sometimes they think, you know, countries like Canada or the US are sort of arrogant, selfish, because, you know, it's all about the individual. It's not about society, okay? So this is a very, very big difference that I've noticed around the world, okay? For example, Canada scores very high in individualism. Everyone is for themselves, right? In the US too, and other Western countries, okay? Whereas Korea scores really low in individualism. That means they value collectivism. Okay, it's all about society, family. Everything is as a group. Okay, it's not about just one person. Okay, the next one is masculinity versus femininity. Now, this doesn't really have to do with men and women. This has to do with certain character traits that are usually associated with one of the genders. Okay, for example, men are very often perceived as being competitive, you know, competitive in sports or business. Okay, whereas femininity is, you know, it's more concerned about cooperative, you know, being cooperative, getting along. That's why some people think women make better CEOs or, you know, business owners, business leaders, because they're not really concerned about competing with other people. They're trying to get along with other people. Okay, there are lots of female CEOs in Canada and the US and other Western countries, whereas I'm not sure about China, Japan. If you're from China, Japan, let me know, how many women CEOs are there in your country? Okay, now men are very often success driven. They want success. That's the most important thing. Whereas women, you know, very often they're more concerned about the quality of life, you know, their family, the well-being of something. They're not really too concerned about a success, really like money or that kind of thing, okay? Now, men, generally, they need to be the best. Now, these are just generalizations. Not all the time. There are obviously exceptions to anything. These are just very broad generalizations, okay? So very often, men are seen as you know, needing to be the best at something. Okay, that's sort of seen as a masculine trait, whereas a feminine trait is more like relaxing, enjoying your work, right? Having more quality, cooperating with other people. Okay, so these are seen sort of as feminine traits. These are sort of as masculine traits. Now, certain cultures, like Asian cultures, Japan, China, Korea, okay, in some sense, they are seen as more masculine. They're very competitive, especially when it comes to like getting good grades in school, right? They need to be the best. They need success. You know, they can't accept failure. Okay, Canada, on the other hand, you know, it's not as driven for these things. Like a good example is when I was in high school, okay, I had some classmates from Asian countries like Korea, Japan, China, and they always got top marks in math class, right? They always got an A+. Whereas me, I got a C in math, and I was okay with that. It didn't matter, okay? It's fine. My parents didn't say anything, you know, nobody said anything. I got into college. Everything's fine. I don't really care. Whereas if one of those people, the Japanese, Koreans, Chinese, if they would have gotten a C on a test, that would be like the end of the world. The world would be coming to an end, okay? So they're very, very driven for success. They need to be the best, okay? So some cultures like Japan are a lot more masculine. Cultures like Canada are a lot more feminine, okay? Let's take a look. Canada, 52. Japan, 95. Wow, that means you better not fail a test in Japan, otherwise the world is going to come crashing down. Okay, the next one is uncertainty avoidance. Uncertainty avoidance. Now this has to do with how much uncertainty a culture can accept. Do they try to avoid it altogether? Some cultures really don't like uncertainty, so they try to minimize the risk. Any risk, they try to get rid of it. Okay, whereas other cultures are more accepting of risk. Okay, now think about Canada and Japan. Which one do you think is more accepting of risk? I think this is a very interesting thing when it comes to immigration. I think that's why Japan doesn't allow immigration. Right? If you go to Japan, everyone is Japanese. Japan has like the lowest immigration in the world. They don't like immigration. Why? Because it's too risky. At least maybe this is a theory I have why they might not like immigration, because they have Japanese culture has a very high uncertainty avoidance. That means they avoid all risk, all uncertainty. Okay, if they let immigrants into their country, it's really going to increase the risk to their way of life, their traditions, their culture. Things might change, and they don't want that. Okay, whereas in Canada's attitude toward immigration is everybody can come here, it doesn't matter. Okay, if our culture changes, fine, it doesn't matter. Okay, our culture has changed a lot, and it is changing, with more immigrants coming in. Japan would hate that. Would hate all the risk. What's going to happen? What are these people going to do? What are they going to change to our culture? Okay, so people in Japan would like to control the future, right? To minimize the risk and to make sure that the future is predictable, to control it. Okay, whereas Canada is just go with the flow. Go with the flow. That means just accept whatever happens, right? In 20 years, if Canada is completely different, fine, whatever, doesn't matter. Okay, so very different attitudes here with uncertainty avoidance. Okay, let's take a look. Canada 48, Japan 92. Wow, it's a very high score. Okay, the next one is short-term versus long-term orientation. Orientation means how you view something, what your perspective is. Okay, so short-term orientation is concerned with immediate gain, immediate results. Okay, for example, a lot of diets in North America are just really short-term, immediate results, like lose 20 pounds in a week. Wow, that's great. A person loses 20 pounds, then they gain all the pounds back. Okay, so very immediate gain. So you can tell North America, or at least Canada and the US, very short-term mindset. Okay, whereas long-term orientation has to do with stability. Okay, very stable, right? Same with something being temporary or being durable. Durable means it lasts for a long time, whereas temporary means it's just very short and then it stops. Okay, so in business, this could be a very big difference if two people are trying to work together, right? For example, a CEO of a company might choose to do something in the company that will make the stock price go up temporarily, just for immediate gains. Whereas someone from Korea or Japan, they would probably sacrifice short-term gains for long-term success, right? They want it to be stable, durable. Okay, short-term people like to spend money. Long-term people like to save money. Now, I've heard this is one of the problems with the European Union. Countries like Germany like to save money. They have a longer-term orientation. Whereas countries like Greece, they don't like to save as much money. They like to spend money, right? Now, I heard a theory about this once. The theory was Northern European countries like to save money and to sort of have this long-term mentality because it's cold in the winters. They have to save up for the winter, save up food, save up money, okay? Whereas in the Southern European countries like Greece, they don't need to save because, well, I mean, there's food all year round. There's fruit trees and there's a supply of food. You don't have to save up money. You don't have to save up firewood to keep your house warm because it's warm all year round in Greece. I don't know if that theory is true, but it's a very interesting Theory. Okay, so let's take a look at some scores here. Canada, 36. Korea, 100. Wow. So Korea is very interested in preserving things for a long time, right? Their traditions, you know, long-term success. Whereas Canada, it's just give me some immediate gain and then we can forget about the long term. Okay, so the last one in Hofstede's model is called Indulgence versus Restraint. This sort of has to do with how much you can express your feelings. Okay, how much you can sort of express yourself, right? Release desires. Okay, if you want to do something, how much can you say whatever you're thinking? Or do you have to restrain? Do you have to hold back? What does society value? Okay, for example, in Asian societies like Japan, they value restraint. You have to control your desires. Whereas in a lot of Western countries like Canada, it's very much more free to just say whatever you think, do whatever you want, right? If I don't like you, I don't like you. I don't like your shoes. I don't like this weather. You can just say whatever you want. And you can also, if you're having a good time, if you're happy, yeah, you can celebrate and you can show your emotions. Whereas in a country like Japan, it's much more reserved. Okay, you might not know what someone is thinking, right? They might be very nice, very polite, but inside they might hate you. Who knows? Okay, so that's a big difference. It's called indulgence. Indulge means how much you can enjoy or how much you can take pleasure in something. Okay, so leisure time. This is a big one here. Okay, in Western societies, we value lots of leisure time. Time to relax, do whatever we want, right? Whereas in a lot of Asian societies, they work very hard. Okay, for example, when I was in China, I always felt bad for Chinese people because Chinese people just work all day, every day. They don't have very much leisure time to just enjoy some hobbies or that kind of stuff. Okay, so there's another difference in what a society values: indulgence or restraint. Okay, let's take a look. Canada, 68, right? We value indulgence. We can just do whatever we want to make ourselves happy. Whereas China, it's more restrained, right? Big difference there. Hey, I want you to go to this website. I'll put the link to the specific page down there in the description. I want you to click on that link and I want you to search for your country here in this box. You just type in your country. Okay, so I want you to look up your country and I want you to tell me one thing you would change. What would you change if you could choose? What would you change about your culture? Is there maybe something you don't like? Would you like a certain score to be lower or higher? For example, this is Canada. I'm from Canada, right? Here are all the different dimensions: power distance, individualism, masculinity, uncertainty avoidance, long-term orientation, and indulgence. Okay, so we can see the lowest one here is long-term orientation, and the highest one is individualism. Now, to be honest, if I could change one thing about Canada, I would change that one. I would change individualism versus collectivism. Canada is too individualist in their mindset. I think it's better to be a little bit more collective. That's what I would change. I would say Canada should be a little bit more collective, care a little bit more about society, have more responsibility towards society. That's just a really nice thing. Anyway, that's what I would change. Let me know what you would do for your country down there in the comments, and I'll see you over in the next episode of Mad English TV. Take care.
Okay, so this video, when they're talking about collectivism versus individualism, that's very important when you're dealing with different employees and their cultural background, right? And consumers themselves. When you're running a business, you got to cater to the consumer market. You have to understand these type of differences in terms of collectivism versus individualism. Now, I think the video said it right. The collectivism is almost like a group think, but to maybe further simplify it down, Collectivism is really about the individual within that society or group thinking what is best for the group, what is best for the society. What could I do my part to contribute? As opposed to where if society is individualistic, it's more of a, to each his own in a way where, I got mine and you got yours, right? And I'm going to make my own decisions and make my own path. And whoever's not in my immediate family or circle, it's really not my business. That is somewhat of the attitude of many Western cultures. Let me know your thoughts, after looking at this video, review it again and just kind of think about how you want to transform your business, keeping this in mind, the cultural dimensions in terms of how you serve your employees that you hire and how you serve the consumer base in selling your product or service. Okay. These are questions to consider. Some concept checks for section 7 and concept checks for section 8. Okay, now remember to review the whole PowerPoint slides. Okay, when you go into your textbook, right? When you go into your textbook, you're going to look at the textbook here. Let me pull that up for you. Okay, based on this textbook, remember, you want to take a look at the table of contents, and remember to look through chapter 9. Okay, and as you scroll through the introduction and the book, it'll open up in a second new page. It gives you the learning objectives. Scroll through the chapter, take a look at the exhibits, and go from there. Okay. And click on each of these links, talk about motivation, models of motivation, and then read about the scientific management theory. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll send you the link to this video. If you got any questions, send me an email or send me a Canvas message and let me know what I could do to assist on chapter 9. And look forward to hearing from you soon. And remember to do the discussion questions. Okay? All right. Have fun with week 9, and I'm only an email and a Canvas message away. And feel free to text me on my mobile number. Thank you.